Hey everybody, and welcome to the Nico de Gallo show. This week, we're gonna... Do you have any milk?
Maybe like soy creamer, I guess. I don't really drink milk.
Like you lactose intolerance?
What is Wait, you mean lactose intolerance?
What? Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Nico de Gallo show. This week I'm going to be talking about Mondegreen's and eggcorns. The gist of it is this. Have you ever been listening to a song, or you've heard this kind of like phrase, and you've been singing these song lyrics and saying this phrase for who knows how long, until years later you find out you've actually been saying the words all wrong? That's basically what a Mondegreen and an eggcorn is. They're very similar. The only difference is Mondegreens are just the result of like a misinterpretation or the mishearing of words, and they usually pertain specifically to songs and poetry. An eggcorn is similar. It's when you mishear something or you misinterpret something, but the alteration comes from some kind of like logical substitute. As a couple of examples of a Mondegreen and an eggcorn, Mondegreen comes from a Scottish ballad where the lyrics were "laid him on the green." But from the way it's sung, people misinterpret it as Lady Mondegreen. So that's where Mondegreen gets its name from. Eggcorn comes from a certain dialect of the United States where they pronounce egg as egg. So when they hear the word acorn, they thought they were hearing the word eggcorn, which kind of makes logical sense because, you know, an acorn without the cap does look kind of like an egg shape, I guess. And corn like kernels or small pieces of things and seeds and nuts and stuff. Anyway, so I put together a list of some of the more common Mondegreens and eggcorns that I come across in my daily life, and maybe some of you guys have heard these too. The first one that I probably hear the most often is old wives' tale. This actually comes from the phrase old wives' tales, and it's the idea that women would get together and chit-chat and gossip and tell stories about what's going on to each other, and so that's how these stories spread. But, you know, they're all rumors, so you can't verify them, and that's what an old wives' tale is. Another one that's super common is for all intensive purposes. The phrase is actually for all intents and purposes, but the intents and part gets misinterpreted and is heard as intensive. Many people write should of. Should of doesn't make any real grammatical sense, and they definitely mean to say should have. But hey, you know what? Maybe that's a mute point. Wait, no, I'm sorry. It's moot point. Moot means having very little practical value. So when your point is moot, it means it's useless. But a lot of people hear that, and because moot is not like an everyday word that people use all the time, they think that what they're hearing is mute point, which is not in the original phrase, but still, again, kind of makes sense. It does carry that idea that your point is nothing, but for the record, the original phrase is moot point. This next one I actually came across yesterday while I was texting a friend about the election, and she was saying, I know, this election is so nerve-wracking. And I paused and I was like, okay, that totally does make sense, but I'm pretty sure what she meant to say was nerve-wracking. Racking, for the record, means to put a strain on a structure that just can't handle that amount of a strain anymore. So it's very tenuous. It also means to torture and torment. So when you're saying that you are dealing with something that's very nerve-wracking, it's to say that whatever you're talking about is really messing with your head. This next one, I'm actually guilty of doing myself. For years, I thought coleslaw was actually cold slaw. Admittedly, this one does kind of bother me. Instead of saying a hair's breadth or writing out a hair's breadth, meaning a very small margin, they instead say a hair's breadth. Hair doesn't breathe. There are no lungs in hair. And it's not hair like a rabbit, it's hair like this, because hair is very thin. And if you've ever seen a rabbit, no body shaming, but they're pretty, you know, they're pretty chubby. Which is super cute, actually. Caught up in the midst of all these things is in the midst of things. And so midst means like the middle of, midst. but a lot of people hear that and mist, it surrounds you, it blurs your vision, it engulfs you, so people mishear or misinterpret the phrase in the midst of things as in the midst of things. All right, and now it's time for the word of the week. This week's word of the week is bridegroom. Bridegroom comes from the Old English compound word BRYDE+GUMA, meaning bride and man. But over time, guma, which was it was an Old English cognate with Latin homo, meaning man, it fell out of use. And over time, that half of the term bridegroom became identified with the word that sounded very similar, groom, meaning manservant or like a minor official in a royal household. And because nobody used the word guma or had any idea what that was even supposed to mean, bridegroom became replaced by bridegroom. So that completes it for the list. I hope you finished this episode knowing a little bit more. Now you know what you're actually trying to say. Maybe you can use this as a super nerdy conversation starter with somebody. Don't use this new knowledge to interrupt someone when they're in the middle of speaking to correct them and tell them, oh, you said this, but you were actually supposed to say that. Nobody likes that guy, okay? Don't be that guy or girl. Special shout out to my friend Adam Dachis, who is letting me use his studio today. Check out his website at awkwardhuman.com. It's a podcast collective / blog where they write about all sorts of cool stuff like virtual reality and why socks help people with their anxiety. Also, the music that I'm using in my video, you can find the artist and links for it and stuff in the description down below, so check that out. Okay, everybody, thank you, and I'll see you next week.